Now, I've talked about the Street Fighter franchise many times on my channel. It is my favourite fighting game series of all time. Absolutely love it. It began with Street Fighter 2 on the SNES, or SNES, depending on how you prefer to say it. And although I prefer my favourite iteration of Street Fighter is the Alpha series, it was back in the arcades, on the cabinets, in the 90s. That was my jam. You go on holiday here in the UK to a crappy caravan park. If you know, you know. And they always had an arcade there, and within that arcade was always Street Fighter machines, and I used to beg my mother for money just to go and play it. Now, don't get me wrong, I did play a lot of fighting games back in the 90s, and since I even had a bit of a dabble on the Nintendo with my cousin with the Street Fighter 2. Mainly because I thought it was so cool, but I got my ass absolutely handed to me. However, I did play a lot of Mortal Kombat as well. Mortal Kombat was an absolute game changer in the 90s too, because although Street Fighter 2 set the staple for a lot of things, Mortal Kombat and its sequel, Mortal Kombat 2, introduced a lot of violence and gore, and with the fatalities, it was just like super cool. And Killer Instinct is an absolutely phenomenal game as well. Of course, you can play that on the Xbox series of consoles. But spending the 90s playing these games with my cousins and my brother was just... it was great. There was no internet, there was no online. It was 1v1, you were there with the person, so when you got your ass handed to you, you had no choice but to have a massive sissy fit and throw the controller down, storm out the room, you know, throw profanities about, why not? But yeah, Street Fighter 2 grabbed me, and since Street Fighter's just had this aura of awesomeness, especially with me. I know it has with a lot of other people, but it has with me. I never really decided to get like really good at the game until recently, and I'm pretty handy at it. I'm not pro or anything, and I don't think I'd make it very high up in the rankings in the online multiplayer. I play far too many different games to become super master at one of them, but I just love the mechanics of Street Fighter, just the easy inputs for the combos, the fact that you cannot cheese like you can on Dragon Ball FighterZ, you know, all the different characters, Ryu, Ken, Blanca, Chun-Li, Zangief, Bison, Cammy. Obviously Cammy was in the original Street Fighter 2, she was added later on in its very multiple different iterations, but Street Fighter 2 still has it, and if you have got a Nintendo Switch, I advise getting the Ultra Street Fighter 2 game for it, and if you can, get it physically, because it's quite pricey physically now. I've got a feeling that one, although was like a very early Switch game, and yes, it's just another port of Street Fighter 2, but you can play it with enhanced graphics, and you can customize the color of your characters, and there's all these different cosmetic options and customization options, which is pretty cool. It's still Street Fighter 2, it still kicks a lot of ass, and there are still people that play in the online mode, and it's well worth picking up, because I believe it's going to be a bit collectible. Could be wrong, but I just got one of them feelings. But if you see it out, grab it straight away if you can. But yeah, you know, the reason why, I don't know, it's bizarre. There are so many games throughout my childhood that that had an impact on me in the 90s. I don't know if that's such the case now, because of course the gaming market is saturated, because if you can't if you haven't got the game, or you're waiting for a new game to come out, you can just go on YouTube or go on the internet and find gameplay footage of it, whether that be alpha gameplay footage or final gameplay footage, you know, from gameplay trailers and all that, and you can just saturate yourself in as much of the content as you want for that specific thing. But back then you couldn't. You played it over a friend's house or over a family member's house. You either had it yourself, and besides that, maybe possibly you had some gaming magazines like Game Master here in the UK, or you know, just Nintendo. I can't remember what it was called. Nintendo UK. I don't think we had Nintendo Power as such. But yeah, you just had to wait, and then when you could play it, it was awesome. And especially on the Super Nintendo, I always liked the controller for the Super Nintendo. I thought it was really cool, because it obviously had the shoulder buttons and all these other, you know, had the 4 normal input buttons and then the shoulder buttons, and that was pretty awesome. You had the heavy attacks put onto the trigger buttons, and it was just really fun to pull off the different moves. And my cousin would never ever teach me the combos. He knew them all because he mastered that game, and he just wouldn't show me. And I'd always choose Blanca because if you just mash the one button, you can electrocute. But he just still kick my ass and floor me. But Street Fighter is just so cool. I cannot wait for Street Fighter 6. I know it's been leaked a little bit from all those Capcom leaks that came out not so long ago. I hope it's coming out for all consoles and not just PlayStation and PC this time. I think that really hurt Street Fighter 5, and for the love of God, with Street Fighter 6, they do need to make the online a hell of a lot better. But yeah, the impact it's had on me, the fact that it revolutionized fighting games and created the staple, just the standard, the gold standard for fighting games.